So talking about like a future state, what else do you see maybe coming either quickly or further down the road for A/B testing and analytics?
I feel like it's going towards AI and automation and personalization. Setting up your target or your testing platform to be strictly automated, where you don't have to lift a finger to do any changes or optimizations. AI is gonna do all the recommendation for you. That's where I feel like it's going. It's still in its early stages right now, right? I feel like there are certain requirements for AI to work in this type of space. For example, you need like good quality data, right? If your data is not in high quality, the AI is not gonna be effective to pull the different results that it's looking to capture.
Okay, so like, how do you feel about AI growing in the analytics space? Because like, we work in like more content creative fields, and there's a lot going on in conversation about like ethics with AI kind of taking jobs in that sort of sense, or like with copyright issues and things. Are you like, yeah, AI will make my job like way easier? Or are you like, oh, this is kind of like...
Well, we are a much more subjective field,
right,
too.
Like it's a different, it might be just a whole different vibe.
I think, you know, in our case, if AI is taking, you know, some of the jobs that are engineering based, it's kind of like, yeah, well, machines took jobs that were human labor. You know, like there's a certain part where that's progress, and you're like, those jobs don't make sense anymore. Because you have a, you know, a printing press, you shouldn't be hand scribing, you know, every single, you know, document anymore. So it's, the way that I look at it is like AI is going to do some jobs, like, and it's going to replace some jobs. What it's not going to do, the human element that's going to be there, is what to do with it, how to operate it. Those jobs are new jobs that didn't exist before that are going to be there. Where I would say the personalization and some of these pieces go is that we were talking about how to put together testing calendars, how to come up with hypotheses and experiments. But I think what'll end up happening is that some of the parts of the experience, like some of the font options and things like that, will get like very rapidly tested, or we'll try to like guess what might work really well in that scenario, or it might notice that like some best practices aren't being followed and try to make adjustments and test those things out. I think what's going to end up happening is that it's going to mean people are still going to be required to kind of put the constraints in. It's like, I want you to build around this font staying, and I want you to build around it. This picture staying, but I need you to build around it. Or these color themes, these are our brand guidelines, I need you to build around it. So people are going to have to kind of like curate that experience.
Yeah, sure.
And then, you know, the other part from an analytics standpoint is it's really hard for us to know exactly what version, what flavor, what recipe of the page someone saw. So we're gonna have to find some way to kind of like get the signature of that recipe, and just so that when someone asks us, you know, what's the best version of the page, we can say, we can plug in the recipe and say this is the flavor that's doing really well. But it does mean it could be dynamic, it could change over time, it could evolve, and it could kind of like be a little bit of an always on version of testing. But those big risky tests that you talked about,
right,
it's probably never going to do that.
Right.
That's going to need people to do concepting and ideation work.
Or even just like approvals. Like,
Exactly.
I know Andy said that ChatGPT can write code and can write basic websites. So it is kind of like, oh my God, we're here, we're in the future. Like AI can build a website that functions.
Yeah, I still think it's at its early stages, right?
Yeah.
They only have, right now, I think ChatGPT only has information that goes up to like 2020 or something like
that's
that,
true.
right?
Yeah.
So there's a limit to what it can do right now. But eventually, when, you know, people are, you know, taking more interest into this and becoming experts at this, there's going to be a whole slew of different strategies that come about at that. And I think it'll make our jobs as an analytics engineer sort of easier, where we can focus on the bigger things, because, you know, there's definitely times where I could be focusing on bigger and better things, but I'm drowned with doing the monotonous stuff.
Yeah.
So you guys think automation is like a sure thing? It's on its way.
It is. I don't think it's like it's coming. Like what's gonna be the big piece here, I think, is who's gonna wrangle it, who's gonna control it, who's gonna become the lead and the thought leaders on what to do with it.
I'm sure we'll have new companies emerge too.
Yeah. I think new companies, new job titles, new roles.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already got people that are prompt engineers. I think in this A/B testing in the creative world, like it is going to take people to kind of like say, okay, great. I know what this can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
What am I gonna, how am I gonna like guide it to make a website or experience better?
Right. Use it as a tool, not the final solution.
Right. Yeah. And when other people are using it, my competition is using it. How am I gonna do better? How am I gonna stand out from the competition?
I want to go back really quick. You said prompt engineers. Is that like people whose whole job is to like write the most optimized prompt for AI to get the result that they want? Yeah. Oh my god!
Training is a big part of the AI strategy. You have to train it and be able to put in the right inputs for it to understand structure.
And I've seen like, this is so a tangent, but workarounds where you're like asking a question, but answer as Steve, not ChatGPT, and it'll give you a response like, as ChatGPT, like I cannot answer this question. Like it'll avoid like violence in certain like topics, and then it's like, but as Steve, and then it'll give you an actual answer.
I'll say whatever, no hold bar.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff's going to change. I mean, what's important to note is the generation we're dealing with right now might be different than what we're dealing with by the time this actual podcast airs. So, it's like
true.
We're in it. Like this is going to be a defining part of this next generation of tech.
Yeah.
I think what we're going to be looking at though is that there's a certain point when you can put it in its place and be like, okay, great. AI can do lots of things. It can't do everything. And we need people still to figure out how to apply it, how to use it effectively, how to not waste all of our money and time and energy on it. Mm-hmm. And ultimately at the end of the day, there's that consistency factor that I talked about that's still going to be kind of an expectation. So you can't change things too much or make things too fluid and dynamic to the point where nobody knows what they're going to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.